Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your Commish with another podcast update. Week 2 is in the books. Once again, we're going to have some injury news, the game reviews, of course, and a couple more trade reviews. And planning soon to, maybe for next week, have an interview. Writing down, thinking of a couple questions, see what we can do with that. Quick overall review of the league this week. Everyone went down or up to 1-1, while Josh Del Mundo stayed undefeated and Frank stayed defeated. Now going on to injury news this week. Greg Olson broke his foot, possible IR. Corey Coleman, broken hand, just had surgery, possible IR. Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, both injured, questionable right now. DeMarco Murray now is day to day with a injured hamstring. So these are some of the more notable injuries. A couple of them on the same team, both Packers/Manny. Keep those in mind. And now on to the game reviews. First up, we have Evil Doc at Pocket Dogs of a score of 102.6 to 120.5. And although Frank did not get spanked as hard this week, he still lost and is the only team without a win. He continued to have some dud games from players, even newcomers Crowell and Diggs. Montgomery shined once again with a big 26-point game, even though it wasn't enough. Going back to Diggs and Crow, Diggs had a low-scoring game because Sam Bradford sat, and Crow ran into what is probably the best defense in the NFL right now in the Ravens. Jordan gets his first win of the year off the back of Gurley, Crabtree, and Evans, who scored 25, 29, and about 19 points respectively. This is the second highest point total of the week, and they even survived the poop Jimmy Graham laid, which was less than 1 point. Up next, we have the game between Reggie and Angel. Both teams went to 1-1 as Angel pulled out the win here. After a strong week 1, Reggie had a mediocre week 2. No one scored more than 12 points, and his rookie running back Dalvin Cook came down to earth point total wise. Unfortunately for him also, Fitz had a bad game with only 3 points. But bright side, Parker had a decent season debut, and another dark side, OBJ not so much. Given OBJ has a horrible Eli Manning throwing him the ball, and he just got back from a high ankle sprain. We'll see how that continues to affect him. And as for Angel, like I said earlier, he gets his first win of the year, and it's off the back of a classic Drew Brees game. 22 points, of course, in a loss to the superior Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. And luckily for him, with Drew Brees and a couple other players, he did enough to survive 3 players scoring 5 points or less. And third on the docket, we have Slight Work at Fail Mary. This was actually one of the more interesting games, probably because I was watching it the whole time myself. And Manny, I take my first loss of the season after making a couple of big trades. I felt the game was meant to be a lot closer, but the injury to Jordy Nelson and a dud game from Antonio Brown, 8 points is a dud game by his standards, secured Josh's win. And also Josh stays undefeated, only undefeated team in the league, off another big game from Kareem Hunt with another 27 points, and Derek Carr dropped 21. Josh needed nice games from his team overall in order to secure this win over what I believe is a good team. He got him, so good for him. Next up, we have Team Darkness at Barking Guns. Both these teams also went to 1-1, with TJ securing his first win and is right on his way to getting his first championship. LOL JK, I'll never let that happen. So for TJ, Carson Wentz showed up once again. At least this time he was in the starting lineup. He's actually starting to look like a steady QB1. Both his Bryants also did work, with Dez and Martavius catching a touchdown each. Trey got his first loss of the season, and it's probably traced to the injury to DeMarco Murray, scoring only 3 points. That hurts from your first round pick. At least it looks good that Mike Gillislee did what he came to New England to do, score touchdowns. So that's a bright spot that Trey has to look forward to. His other newcomer, Tyreek Hill, did not have that good of a game this week, despite the win at Philadelphia. Philly is one of those nice defenses, so it makes sense that Tyreek was probably held down a little bit. Next up, we have Hard Knocks at Vitamin D. Also, both teams go to 1-1 with a score of Josh scoring 101.6 and McCall scoring 105.1. Despite huge games from Tom Brady, who scored about 36 points, and Travis Kelce, Josh got his first loss of the season. It was probably because of Ezekiel Elliott, LeGarrette Blount, and Adam Thielen combining for only 10 points. I mean, Eazy-E only had 8 rushing yards against the Denver Broncos, who are only known for their pass defense. It's not a good sign, but knowing them, he'll probably bounce back. McCall moved up to 1-1 behind strong showings from Melvin Gordon, Devontae Adams, and Eric Ebron. Unfortunately for McCall, he loses promising young wide receiver Corey Coleman with a broken hand, and he already has Allen Robinson on his IR slot, so he might end up dropping him. And if you're looking for a wide receiver that you might want to stash for the entire year on your IR, if you have nothing better to do, Corey Coleman. And who knows, maybe he comes back in about 10 weeks, just in time for you to lose in the playoffs to me. Decisions. And last game of the week before we get to the trade reviews, we have Motorboat and Sons of Bitches at Tasha Rain with a score of 71.7 to 121.6. Both teams moved to 1-1. Here, after spanking TJ by 60 points last week, Fred gets his little white tushy pow-powed by Corey. I mean, Jordan Howard barely put out, and combined with the Jags defense, who did well last year, and Jesse James, who did well last week, I should say, for the Jags, and Jesse James, combined 0.4 points. Bad games for most on Fred's team, except another decent showing from Phillip Rivers and a promising showing from Alshon, who, given his history, in a week or two will probably have a soft tissue issue. And as for Corey, he scored a league high 121 points this week, all behind a close 30 points by CJ Anderson, 23 by Devontae Freeman, and free agent pickup JJ Nelson with about 20 points almost. And at least one J Nelson showed up this week. Also, there is a little dark side to what happened with Corey. Greg Olsen broke his foot and leaves him with less PPR depth. At least Corey has 2 other tight ends that he can throw on, but leaves his flex a little bit weak. And that's it for the games. Let's move on to the trade reviews. First trade, we have Manny trading Tyreek Hill, Mike Gillislee, and Bilal Powell to Trey for Jordy Nelson, Isaiah Crowell, and James White. This happens to be the biggest trade of the season, and it sees 6 players moved, with the trade helping what I believe both sides. Trey receives a lot of big game potential from Hill and Gillislee, although we've already seen that Gillislee does provide a nice floor with the touchdowns. Hill, not so much, mainly because of the type of passing game that Alex Smith adheres to. Still, it's nice to know that when you need 20 points from them, they can still probably drop 20 each. Both players are coming off big Thursday night games, like I said, and will continue to provide that potential. Being the only owner to fully auto draft, Trey picks up a couple players that he likes a bit more than those gifted to him. Manny, on the other hand, receives the best and widest player in the trade in Jordy Nelson. Jordy is the most proven and safest player within this transaction, and I also received a potential running back too in Crowell, who ends up actually getting flipped. More on that later. And Tommy B's favorite running back out the backfield in James White. He proved it in the Super Bowl, and with the injury to Amendola, hopefully he still gets a little bit more PPR work. Also, Crow and White haven't proven as much as the other 4 players in this trade, but they do have the potential to really come into their own this season, especially behind that offensive line in Cleveland, who didn't do well against the Ravens, but Ravens are nice this year. And I honestly feel like I overpaid just a bit to get Jordy because of the potential that Hill and Gillisley have, especially Bilal Powell, because he's proven that he can score when given the touches. But it was worth in my eyes because of the depth I had in my flex. All right, and yeah, for a second trade, like I said, Crowell was flipped, and him along with Stefan Diggs Manny traded them along to Frank for Jay Ajayi. And mere days after trading for Crow, I flipped him, and it's a potential stud uh, RB in Jay Ajayi. I believe he's good this year. I think he can be really good. He has a skill to. It's just most of his yardage did come in 2 games against the Bills. But guess what? He gets to play the Bills again this year. And he ended up having a decent showing against what I believe is a decent Chargers defense, especially with Joey Bosa running around. And, Frank, I believe having Montgomery play well, it allowed Frank to take a slight downgrade at running back from J.J. to Isaiah Crowell to improve his wide receiver core. Right now, of course, Crowell didn't do that well compared to Ajayi, but I think by season's end or mid-season, you'll see a lot better, a more closer production rate. As far as wide receiver core being upgraded, Cooks hasn't shown it yet. He did decent this week, and Keenan Allen is incredibly injury prone, even though he did well this week. So shoring that up with a nice possession receiver is nice. And like I said, I believe Crowell can do about 90% of what Ajayi can, maybe 80%, especially if the Browns decide to use Duke Johnson Jr. in the slot and still dump off to Crow, which they did a little bit last year, and they can continue to do this year. And like I said, Ajayi got most of the yards against the Bills last year, but he is the unquestioned workhorse, and has proven against the Chargers, 20 plus carries, about 130 yards, and biggest thing, he's already had his bye week, meaning he doesn't skip a week for the rest of the season. Could be good or bad, however you want to take it, but I don't have to worry about bye weeks for the Dolphins players. And I believe this trade helps both teams as Manny continues to trade depth for star power. And there goes our trade reviews. Also, a few notable pickups. Like I said before, J.J. Nelson, picked up by Corey, had a big game. Mike Tolbert, who I believe would probably end up being LaShawn McCoy's handcuff, also picked up by Corey. Buck Allen, picked up by Manny, had a big game. Chris Johnson, picked up by Angel to offset the loss of David Johnson. Not so good. And Josh finally got rid of Sebastian Janikowski and picked up his replacement on the squad, Giorgio Tavecchio, whatever his name is. Alright, everybody. Look, going under 15 minutes. I'm thinking about 15 minutes is where we want this podcast to be. Maybe if I get a little bit more content, maybe an interview or so, maybe we can push it towards like 17, 18 minutes. Not trying to go over 20 because we all got things to do instead of listening to me talk. Yeah. Alright, guys. Any questions, comments, and concerns, direct them towards me, either via text, Facebook, YouTube comments, or wherever. You guys know where to hit me up. Good luck. Oh, congratulations to everyone that won. Suck it to all the guys that lost this week, and good luck for next week. Alright, Commish out.